Mesdames, Messieurs, Pierre Gattaz, le président du MEDEF.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Merci à Pierre Gattaz, le président du MEDEF. Donc, cette université d'été édition 2016 est ouverte. Le monde change, le monde bouge. Y croire, agir. Et on va commencer cette demi-journée, ce mardi après-midi, avec une plénière qui va justement concerner ceux qui nous regardent. Ceux qui nous regardent depuis l'Asie-Pacifique, ceux qui nous regardent depuis l'Europe, une Europe élargie, ceux qui nous regardent depuis l'Afrique, avec trois personnalités exceptionnelles qui sont avec nous, des regards croisés, un échange, un retour d'expérience, et puis ils vont nous dire comment, avec leurs yeux, avec peut-être leur verre déformant, leur verre grossissant, mais en tout cas leur verre éclairant, comment ils voient une France encore plus audacieuse et encore plus agile. Avant de les accueillir, je voudrais saluer toutes les délégations étrangères qui sont avec nous et qui nous font l'amitié d'être cet après-midi et tout au long de ces 2 journées avec nous. La délégation du Mali, nos amis maliens, que vous pouvez applaudir, 4 ministres et puis toutes les personnalités qui travaillent avec le MEDEF sur le futur sommet France-Afrique. Ce sera à Bamako en 2017. Je voudrais saluer aussi le patronat ivoirien qui est avec nous. Vous pouvez les applaudir. La CGECI, le patronat britannique, le CBI qui est avec nous, et puis tous les ambassadeurs étrangers. Merci de les saluer chaleureusement et de les remercier pour leur présence cet après-midi. Alors je vous le disais, donc une plénière pour débuter cette université d'été avec 3 regards croisés. On va les appeler, et je vous le disais, c'est vraiment un honneur de les avoir avec nous parce que chacun, dans son compartiment du jeu, dans son rôle d'entrepreneur, il fait bouger son ou ses entreprises. J'appelle le président Europe de Procter & Gamble, Monsieur Gary Coombe, qui nous rejoint. Je vous demande de l'applaudir. Et il va s'installer. Hello Gary. Je vais appeler le chairman of Earth Holdings, of the United Bank of Africa, of Transcorp, qui est aussi le fondateur de Tony Elumelu Foundation, Monsieur Tony Elumelu qui est avec nous. Tony Elumelu, thanks for joining us. Tony, sit down please. Et puis je vais appeler le président de la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie du Laos, Monsieur Oudé Souvanavong. Oudé Souvanavong, que vous pouvez également applaudir et remercier pour sa présence. Merci à vous, Oudé, d'être avec nous. Alors, avant de commencer, j'ai un petit chapeau de présentation pour chacun d'entre vous. It will be in French, Tony. Gary Coombe, c'est un fidèle de Procter depuis la fin de ses études. Alors, il pilote toute l'Europe pour la célèbre multinationale, ce qui fait quand même 59 pays. Et même si parmi ses marques phares, il y a Gillette, ceux qui le connaissent vous le diront, il n'est jamais rasoir. Monsieur Gary Coombe, qu'on peut applaudir encore une fois, s'il vous plaît. Lui, il a la fibre entrepreneuriale dans son ADN. Avec sa fondation, il accompagne, il soutient, il finance des milliers de start-up africaines. Et ce natif de la 2e économie africaine est un cumulard. Son pays, le Nigeria, a du pétrole. Et lui, il a des idées. Tony Elumelu, qui est avec nous cet après-midi. Et enfin, un francophone, un francophile convaincu. Il est l'exemple parfait du mariage réussi entre culture et business. Entrepreneur dans divers secteurs, de l'hôtellerie aux infrastructures, à l'export. Il est aussi membre du bureau exécutif de l'ASEAN. Il nous a rapporté du Laos ces douces fragrances françaises qui flottent, me l'a-t-il dit, encore dans son pays. Et côté investissement en Asie du Sud-Est, il va nous mettre au parfum Oudé Souvanavong, qui est avec nous, que vous pouvez applaudir encore une fois. Alors, ma première question, je vais la poser à Gary Coombe. Gary, thanks for joining us. There's a particular story between you and me because when graduated from ESCP, my first business experience was at Procter & Gamble for Mr. Propre, Mr. Clean, Señor Don Limpio in España. Gary, tell us about how and why PG believes in France and has been believing in France for many years. It's a long story between Procter & Gamble, its brands, and the French citizens.
thank you for the introduction, and it's delightful that you worked on the P&G business and Monsieur Prop. Some people say I look like Mr. Clean, actually. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, you resemble a little bit.
Procter & Gamble do believe in France. You know, we've been here 62 years. We have a multi-billion euro business in France. We employ over 2,500 people. And I was delighted by the note of optimism that we heard from the President and the opening remarks, because we share that optimism. Whilst there are issues that we need to address, and I'm sure we'll come on and talk those, overall we think France is a fantastic opportunity to attract more investment, to grow our business here, grow the economy, grow employment. As a small example, over the last 4 years we've invested 250 million euros in our Amiens plant, which is not far from here.
In Amiens?
In Amiens. It's our biggest factory in Europe. It's a strategic site. We're very proud of it. And we want to continue to invest in the country and the economy.
You have a really optimistic vision from London to Russia. I said a great number of countries under your responsibility. I said a really optimistic vision of France. It's not the same from France, for French people. You know, they're always complaining, never satisfied, and never believe in their own chances.
I think that's true, and I think it's a shame. I've been very impressed with the note of optimism that started this conference. I think that's very important. I think there are great opportunities for growth in France. Now, let's be honest, there are lots of things happening in France and in the world that create some threats that we must address. The world is disrupting very quickly. Business models are disrupting very quickly, often driven by technology.
You have to be agile.
Absolutely. Aging populations, urbanizing populations. And with all this change, one of the things that, whilst there are many opportunities with that, one of the things that trouble me is the rise of populism, the rise of a protectionist argument. I think we saw that with Brexit, which was a shame.
From certain politicians in France.
From certain politicians as well. I think we're seeing it in the commentary in the US with the US elections. And I think the root cause of that is that institutions, be they government or business, have become somewhat disconnected from the consumer, from the citizen. And I think
from the real life also.
From real life. And I think it's vital for us to succeed going forward, that we reconnect with the citizens. And that's what's made P&G a successful enterprise over many years. If we focus on the consumer, we listen to the consumer, we meet the consumer needs, we will win. And I think it's the same with governments and countries as well.
And as I said, the citizens, the consumers, are also electors. So this is the story.
They are indeed.
Yeah. Tony, it's a great pleasure and a great honor to have you with us here in Jouy-en-Josas. What a wonderful story from Nigeria. Success, reach our goals, achieve your dreams. This is your story. And it all began when you were 26 in a bank. It's an interesting story. Tell us about that.
First is to congratulate my friend, Ferret, the wonderful speech you made, and I like the optimism that you shared, and I also like the prescriptions, and I wish leaders, not just in France, but across the world, can embrace this. I like what you said about social impact to reforms. It's almost like what we call Afro-capitalism, which I hope we'll be able to share in the course of this conversation. My entrepreneurial journey started long ago and led to...
What a successful journey.
Thank you. I think for me, rather than tell the story of how we started, I want to talk about what we owe the younger generation of Africans to make sure that the luck that we had and the opportunities we had in our time, that we're able to democratize, institutionalize, and share this with the rest of them. And that is why my foundation, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we started the entrepreneurship program, because I believe that the key to dealing with issues of extremism, issues of poverty, issues of unemployment, to a large extent, is about private sector's engagement in development. It's about creating more entrepreneurs. If we have more entrepreneurs, these entrepreneurs will help us to provide jobs. Government on its own cannot create jobs, but if government creates as my friend said, the enabling environment, entrepreneurs will be able to pick it from there and help government create jobs. That is what we're doing through the Tony Elumelu Foundation. That is a promise, in fact, call it obligation, that we owe to African, upcoming Africans, so that they too can sound like this and tell their own stories how they started. Africa has a lot of, our demographic structure is so that we have a lot of young ones under the age of 30, representing over 60% of our population, but we don't have jobs for these people. If we do not do something about this, Africa will become a challenge to all of mankind. So we, through our foundation, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, are trying to see how we can assist these Africans,
And
assist
support.
ourselves, and support the world.
Yeah, it was a way for you to thank life, to having enabled you to grow and to succeed. And when you see the fast-growing new generations in Africa, everything is possible. And your motto is, your idea can transform Africa. That's an optimistic, as Gary said, way to share your goals, your achievements, your targets.
You know, you have a lot of Africans who have great ideas, but they die with their ideas. Why? Because they don't have access to finance, access to capital, and they lack mentors. And so what my foundation did was to put in place $100 million to help these young Africans who have ideas, just ideas in any field, to be able to practicalize, experiment, bring their ideas to fruition through the support we give them with $10,000 in 2 tranches of $5,000 each. This is helping them to not only dream, but to have the capacity, the financial capacity, and the mentoring support to translate their ideas to reality.
That's what Mr. Gatta said.
Yeah, that's what
At the
I like
beginning
his
of
speech.
a
His speech
company,
was,
there's a man or a woman, an idea, and to transform the idea into a success and a company. Oudé, on va parler français parce que c'est un vrai honneur pour nous de vous avoir avec nous. Vous avez étudié à l'École supérieure de pédagogie de Vientiane. Vous venez du Laos, formidable pays, avec, je le disais, les multiples influences françaises, culturelles, et puis aussi dans le business. Et vous, je le disais, vous avez un portfolio d'entreprises qui est considérable. Racontez-nous votre histoire qui peut inspirer de nombreux entrepreneurs.
Je vais commencer pour parler en tant que pays du sud-est asiatique. Comment on perçoit la France, est-ce que c'est la France pour nous? Bien sûr, la France, avec l'Union européenne, est un de nos majeurs partenaires dans les échanges commerciaux. Et l'Europe, l'Union européenne maintenant, elle fait 10% du marché de l'ASEAN, du pays. Et à peu près 30% des investissements européens sont dans l'ASEAN. Ça veut dire que l'Europe a une majeure partie dans les investissements et dans l'entreprise dans les pays de l'Asie. C'est vrai. Nous, les Asiatiques, on a une différente culture de voir l'entreprise comme elle est. On est entrepreneur quand on est tout petit déjà.
C'est dans les gènes.
Oui, c'est dans les gènes déjà. On commence à négocier les contrats déjà avec papa et maman.
C'est le sens du business des Asiatiques, hein, qui est bien connu.
Comme
hein.
ça, et c'est pour ça que nous, avec le business, c'est dans le sang déjà, et surtout dans les gens d'origine chinoise et indienne.
Les Français sont, vous le disiez, encore influents dans ce triangle Laos, Vietnam, Cambodge, et pas que. Hein.
Oui, au fait, au Laos en particulier, la France est considérée comme un tuteur. Toujours, si un entrepreneur français vient au Laos ou vient au Vietnam ou au Cambodge, il est toujours bien accepté ou bien intégré et bienvenu. Le problème, c'est que le temps a changé. Maintenant, il y a la compétition avec les anglophones, il y a les anglophones comme mon ami Gary, ils ont plusieurs atouts, plus d'atouts aussi, plus de données à donner que les entreprises françaises. C'est pour ça qu'il y a un choix à faire et les gens, des fois, basculent dans les parties anglophones.
Alors vous allez nous expliquer comment on peut faire justement pour accroître la compétitivité des entreprises françaises, qui sont quand même nombreuses hein, en Asie du Sud-Est. Mais on voit que, vous le disiez, ça c'est un point important, les temps ont changé, et en termes d'influence linguistique aussi. Vous me disiez en préparant cette conférence, il y a encore des gens qui parlent le français, mais c'est plutôt des générations déjà quadra ou quinca, hein, c'est ça?
Oui, le français se perd en ce moment, surtout dans le domaine du commerce. J'ai discuté avec plusieurs de mes amis. Je dis que pour vraiment développer un français là-bas, dans le sud-est asiatique, c'est de promouvoir les petites entreprises françaises pour qu'ils s'installent là-bas. Parce que les petites entreprises, ils auront plus de temps d'initier la langue française à leurs collègues ou bien à leurs employés. Si c'est une grande multinationale, bien sûr, il y aura les normes internationaux qui vont...
Elle va passer à l'anglais du coup.
Ils vont passer à l'anglais.
Alors là, c'est un signal intéressant hein, pour tous les acteurs et les actrices comme vous qui dirigez des ETI ou des PME. On va y revenir avec vous, Oudé. I switch to English. Gary, we talked about this long story between Procter & Gamble and France, an industrial story, an economic story, and also, to some extent, a social story, because the brands we know in France and in Nigeria, also from Procter & Gamble, are so familiar to us. We live when we are in front of the washing machine with Ariel, we are with Head & Shoulders, we are with Pampers. It's a good way to maintain a strong link between a company, American company, and France.
That's well said. As I said to you earlier, Frederick, we've been here for 62 years, and the reason we have survived and thrived and grown in France is because we have brands that consumers love. And consumers love our brands because two things really, or three things. One is the technology is terrific. The second is we deliver them to the consumer at a value that makes sense. And I will tell you, much of what we sell in France, we produce in France. The factory that I referred to earlier makes a lot of product for France and beyond. We export to 50 countries from France.
And much innovation in this plant in Amiens recently.
Much innovation in the production, much innovation in the brands. We deliver the brands at a value that the consumer likes. And of course, we have marketing that connects with local consumers, which relates to the point I made earlier. It's very, very important that businesses like ours are well connected with consumers and shoppers and understand what they want. If you do those things, you can create lifelong brand relationships with people. And whilst the business community will know our brands as big global brands, to consumers in France, they're French brands that they love, and long may that continue.
Yeah, difficult to make to maintain the balance between the local brands and the global brands, but global brands from PG are considered and regarded as local brands from a French perspective.
In France, Ariel is a French brand, but I will tell you, in Japan, Ariel is a Japanese brand. That's the magic of it.
There's a big brand. A big brand is Tony Elumelu brand. In Africa, Pan-Africa, you created a bank, the United Bank of Africa. What a great success and a good way to federate all the countries in Africa, not especially English-speaking countries, but French-speaking countries also.
United Bank for Africa, that I'm opportune to lead as the chairman, has been in operation for over 70 years. And as you said, it operates across Africa in 19 African countries, has 1,000 branches across Africa, banks about 14 million Africans. But most importantly, to the African entrepreneurs, United Bank for Africa helps the small and medium-scale enterprises. It helps them to actualize their economic aspirations. It supports them. It supports women. It also helps to facilitate trade and payment across Africa. So
You mentioned that, sorry, Johnny, but the figures are really impressive. Huh? $100 million, 10 years, 10,000 startups. It's a great deal.
It is, I must say that the $100 million that my foundation, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, is committed to helping upcoming African entrepreneurs is not because we have so much money, but it's because we believe what counts at the end of the day is not how much we have in our bank accounts, but how the kind of impact and legacy we're able to leave behind. We think, and I in particular believe, that poverty anywhere is a threat to all of us everywhere. And so if we do not come together to help these young Africans to become fishermen, if we don't help them to have economic hope and actually actualize these hopes, they will become a threat to all of us. So I say to not just my colleagues, but to other endowed Africans and friends of Africa who want to see Africa succeed, we need to see or change how we give in Africa in the 21st century. We need to support entrepreneurs. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in Africa who want to succeed, who have great ideas, who are enterprising, hardworking, who are honest, and all they need is some little support. What we do at the Tony Elumelu Foundation is just $10,000 for each 10,000 people every year, which is 10,000 in 10 years. But the impact we're beginning to see is quite phenomenal. So imagine what will happen if we could help more people. So maybe Procter & Gamble will come to the support of these young Africans.
Why not? You know, it's interesting because you talk about supporting new generations, promoting mentorship. Many of the entrepreneurs in France promote that values. This is the same. What do you see when you look at France from Lagos?
When I look at France from Lagos, when I look at France from Africa, and when we, not just me, look at France from Africa, we see a long-standing friend of Africa. France has been there for Africa for a long time. We like the deep relationship that is between France and Africa. We see France, though, as being closer to the Francophone. For obvious reasons, Francophone Africa would like to see a more expanded relationship, Francophone, Anglophone. And to that extent, I'd like to again commend President, Mr. Gattaz. He led a delegation of 50 French business leaders to Nigeria last year or 2 years back. And that's very good. That's the beginning of this kind of a partnership.
You say this is the beginning. You mean that the relationship must change? Cooperation, different relationship?
We want the change in fundamental forms. For instance, we need to see a new form of economic and commercial partnership between France and Africa. We need, and when we say Africa, as I said before, not just Francophone Africa, but all of Africa, Francophone, Anglophone, Lusophone Africa, want to see that because Africa is indeed a huge market. The demographic structure of our population supports French businesses or products to be sold. And we do have in Africa today new business leaders, new private sector leaders who do not want to just be agents for foreign businesses, but who want to be local partners of foreign businesses.
The rise of middle class also.
And of course, the middle class is rising, income per capita is improving, the macroeconomic environment is stabilizing, governments in Africa are becoming more serious and beginning to contribute in creating the conducive business environment that will enable French businesses, as in other businesses, to succeed. So we see an improving relationship between Africa and France, but want to see this continue. I was opportuned earlier this year to come to the French Senate to discuss with, the Senate House to talk about business opportunities in Nigeria. That has never happened before. That's a new development. That is what we want to see between France and Nigeria, between France and the rest of Africa. We want to see an expanding relationship between all of us. And again, Mr. Gattaz and his team are leading in that area. The business France also helping setting up business offices in Africa That is very, very good. We want to see the French government support these initiatives and also support like Proparco, capitalize them further so that they'll be able to maybe support more businesses in Africa.
And I see Mr. Senard from Michelin listening to you, and Michelin is really present in Africa, in many countries of Africa. Just, yeah, you know. What I suggest now is, if you agree, Gary and Uday, is to play the movie about your foundation. Between its an increasing success, around 20,000 persons applied for the first edition, double now.
About 65,000 people.
65,000, yeah.
For only 2,000 slots.
Okay.
You can imagine that there's so much need for support for entrepreneurs on the continent.
Your idea can transform Africa. Regardez.
Africa is a land of opportunities. There's no better time than this moment to be and become an entrepreneur in Africa.
I'm from Ghana. My business is in the IT sector.
I'm the founder of Grits Fresh Foods, which is the company that aims to promote healthy lifestyle in Africa.
I am committing $100 million to support the next generation of African entrepreneurs. The program represents a decade-long commitment to support 10,000 African entrepreneurs and startups.
I've been mentoring 5 mentees. People will be developing businesses and creating jobs, which is badly needed in Africa.
When someone says, this is impossible, reply with 2 sentences. 1, nothing is impossible. 2, impossible only takes longer.
I want to charge you all in your own little ways to become like little Elumelus. Your creativity, innovation, talent, and most importantly, strength of character is our future. I'm sure that your countries and our continent will be safe in your hands.
Just focus on creating value, because anytime you focus on creating value, you're attracting capital.
I had a dream to connect with our African brothers and sisters, and you have made this dream come true.
And to me, it's about legacy. Put yourself in my position and working in my old age at 80, for instance, and I visit Zambia, and someone says, I own this financial institution. I got $10,000 from a certain man from Nigeria called Tony Elumelu. That's how I started. That is my ambition.
Now we can customize our product for, the Pan-African market. So we're going home, we're going big.
And I believe that the seed we plant today through the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program will help to develop Africa in the future.
Voilà, the Tony Elumelu Foundation. Gary, one reaction about supporting young generation and targeting on entrepreneurship and succeeding in new projects?
Well, first I'm going to congratulate Tony. What a magnificent foundation. Well done, sir. Of course, promoting young talent and developing young talent is critical for every country, every market. It's particularly critical in France as well. I was asked this morning, what does France have to offer a global business like P&G? And the first thing that came to my mind was the quality of the talent here, the quality of the schools, the quality of the education, the quality of the young talent. We have some of our most senior leaders in P&G around the world who are French, who started in France. It was a great shame you didn't stay on Monsieur Prop all those years ago.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's very important that we do that, not just within our corporation, but of course we also need SMEs as part of our infrastructure. I'll talk again about the factory we have down the road. That's serviced by many small companies around that requires the support and infrastructure to begin operations, to grow. Many of the comments we heard this morning around how regulation can get in the way of that are good comments. We need to work on some of those issues. They're very important. If we give our young people the opportunity to get into business, either startups or big corporations, That's how we'll grow the economy. That's how we'll grow employment. That's how we'll meet the needs of the citizens.
And you are a good example of how succeeding in a company, in a one and single company, because I guess in 2 days you will celebrate your 30th anniversary in Procter & Gamble?
Yes, that's true. I started when I was 12 years old, obviously.
Wow, a big round of applause for Gary. Oudé, on parlait de soutenir l'entrepreneuriat. Vous commenciez à nous donner quelques clés pour les entrepreneurs ici, hein, de ne pas hésiter à y aller, d'oser, plutôt des petites entreprises, des PME. Et comment faire? Parce qu'il y a la barrière de la langue, mais là non, puisqu'on parle français.
Mais d'abord, je voudrais faire une réaction sur la présentation de Tony. En Asie, la population est très jeune. Et les jeunes entrepreneurs et aussi les femmes entrepreneuses sont très prises au sérieux. Dans l'ASEAN, nous, on a des associations de jeunes entrepreneurs et qui travaillent avec nous, avec les entreprises, pour promouvoir leurs idées, leurs innovations. Et nous, on met aussi en action ce qu'ils font. Et surtout, les jeunes et les femmes, ils sont toujours considérés dans le secteur social et un peu séparés du secteur économique et des entreprises. Nous, en tant que dans le Conseil des affaires de l'ASEAN, on va les réinsérer dans le secteur économique pour mieux développer l'innovation dans le pays. À propos de comment faire avec les PME, la langue au Laos, ou bien au Vietnam et au Cambodge, c'est plutôt d'y aller, de ne pas hésiter, d'y aller, de faire des échanges. Parce que si vous n'avez pas de contact, c'est un peu difficile de comprendre la culture du pays, ou bien de comprendre l'esprit d'entreprise, parce qu'on a une différente culture d'entreprise.
Déjà, on ne dit pas oui, on ne dit pas non non plus, hein, c'est ça, hein?
Oui. Par exemple, là-bas, si on fait faillite, on perd la face. Là-bas, si on fait des emprunts, on perd la face aussi. Oh, celui-là, il a emprunté, c'est pas bien. Il y a la culture. Ou bien là-bas.
On peut faire des emprunts à UBA.
Alors, c'est un peu difficile de comprendre aussi. Et le problème que vous aurez aussi, c'est la main-d'œuvre. La main-d'œuvre est déjà difficile à avoir, mais la main-d'œuvre qualifiée aussi. Et la culture, c'est, comme vous avez dit, ils disent jamais non, ils disent jamais oui, alors on ne sait pas ce qu'ils pensent. Alors
en tout cas, ils sont accueillants.
Oui.
Et il y a un point qui est intéressant dans ce que vous dites, Oudé, c'est que vous nous précisez, il ne faut pas avoir peur d'y aller, quitte à trébucher. Ça, c'est très anglo-saxon comme façon de voir les choses. Hein, quand vous me disiez, on voit toutes les startups, toutes les entreprises qui réussissent, mais combien d'échecs avant de finalement y arriver? Donc, c'est pas avoir peur d'oser, de prendre des risques. C'est l'audace dont parlait Pierre Gattaz tout à l'heure.
C'est que le président Pierre Gattaz a bien expliqué. Il y a trop d'académiciens et nous, en Laos, on suit la France. Alors, il y a une pyramide à l'envers où il y a des académiciens qui font tout là-bas et il n'y a pas de main-d'œuvre, il n'y a pas d'entrepreneurs qui peuvent créer des emplois et qui peuvent aussi développer l'économie. Alors, moi, je suis pour l'objectif et aussi le débouché qui a été pris pour votre président et dire que oui, il faut plus d'entrepreneurs, il faut agrandir aussi comment on dit,
la
palette pour aussi collecter les impôts pour les gouvernements, comme ça ils sont contents, et aussi pour nous aussi à croire l'économie, à pouvoir voyager quand on est bien et à pouvoir aussi s'intégrer dans notre économie.
Voilà, cercle vertueux. Tony, just to sum up, and I'm going to ask this question from each of you. The key success factor, what should you advise France to do in terms of relationship with politicians, in terms of the private sector, because you have to deal that and corruption in Nigeria also. But you succeed. You bought a plant in order to produce power, because almost 50% of the population of Nigeria don't have any power. And key success factors for the entrepreneurs here.
So I'll answer the question in two parts. First part is the advice for the government, the political class. Second part is success factors for entrepreneurs, speaking as one. So first, for government needs to realize that what is good for the private sector is good for society. And that if private sector succeeds, the private sector will help government to realize its aspirations. Government wants to create jobs. Government wants to deal with security issues. Government wants to make sure that standard of living is high. I believe, as a private sector person and having been in that space for quite some time, that private sector is better placed to help government achieve these intents. If people are hopeful, if people are employed, security challenges will go down. If people are fully engaged, if people are unemployed or employed, then standard of living will improve. So to a large extent, the private sector actually holds the key, but it's taking governments a long time to realize this. In the 21st century, it's beginning to change. I'm happy that the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, has now recognized the role of private sector in helping the world to achieve these objectives. So to the political class here, especially as you're going to elections soon, try to create the enabling environment that will allow your entrepreneurs to succeed, because their success will be the success of the government of France.
This is the first part.
That is the first part. The second part, to fellow entrepreneurs, let us dream dreams, let's dream big, and let's work seriously towards making the dreams happen. And how do we do this? First, we need to be disciplined. 2, we need to work hard. 3, we need to realize that the journey of entrepreneurship is not a short-term journey, it's a long-term journey. The path is not linear. You have difficulties at times, but stay resilient and stay focused, stay committed.
Consistency.
Consistency, it helps in the long run to succeed. Our organization, the holding company I sit on, we have our core values captured in the acronym we call HERS. H is for hard work. E is for emotional intelligence. The I there is for integrity. R is for resilience, because we have seen that in business, especially for the entrepreneurs, you must be extremely, extremely resilient to succeed. And so, to our entrepreneurs here, my advice, we know the world economy is going through its own difficult times, but think big. Don't be constrained by what's happening today, because you're a long-term player. In the long term, you will succeed. You overcome short-term challenges. Work very hard. Make sacrifices. Stay disciplined. And above all, realize that the journey to entrepreneurship is a long-term journey, meaning when you encounter short-term difficulties, stay on. In the long run, you will succeed. Do these things in addition to government creating the right environment for you to succeed, you will do very well.
Tony Elumelu. Thank you, Tony. And if you please, if I can use your motto, your idea can transform France also, and not only Africa. Oudé, quelques clés, quelques facteurs clés de succès, quelques conseils. Y croire, travailler, savoir entreprendre, ça, les entrepreneurs le savent. Même quand c'est compliqué, vous allez organiser le sommet des affaires la semaine prochaine à Vientiane, le sommet de l'ASEAN. Quelques petites clés comme ça entre nous.
tout semble aller mal, mais je pense qu'il faut prendre l'opportunité de cette atmosphère, comment on appelle, être positivement et de vraiment regarder à l'avant et chercher les nouvelles opportunités de l'environnement actuel qui va se créer. Alors je crois que pour moi, il faut toujours travailler et changer de cap s'il le faut, parce que moi j'ai changé de cap plusieurs fois et ça a toujours marché. Il ne faut pas rester sur nos pieds d'aujourd'hui, il faut toujours changer de cap, voir où le vent vient et se pencher comme le roseau et chercher d'autres débouchés. Peut-être qu'il y aura des niches et des nouvelles niches qui vont se créer à cause de cette atmosphère. Et je crois qu'il faut aussi avoir l'ouverture vers l'Afrique, vers l'Amérique et aussi vers l'Asie. C'est ça, parce que le marché est grand. Le marché avec les nouvelles technologies, avec la communication, il se développe très vite. La population en France vieillit, mais la population en Asie s'agrandit. Tous les Louis Vuitton qui vont se vendre, ou bien les sacs de maroquinerie, ils vont se vendre comme des petits... parce que la culture des Asiatiques, ils ne mettent pas l'argent dans les banques. Ils achètent les sacs Vuitton pour le show. Alors, c'est un grand marché, il faut y aller. Il n'y a pas que les sacs Vuitton, il y a autre chose que vous avez.
Il y a les pneus aussi,
il y a
Sénard.
Le savoir-vivre français. Tout le monde veut... Moi, je suis allé dans des restaurants 3 étoiles Michelin à Tokyo, à Bangkok, à Singapour, et c'est très cher, mais tout le monde y va. Voilà, il faut continuer, monsieur.
Voilà, on est positif. Merci beaucoup. Merci Oudé, merci infiniment. Gary, I would like you to give us a kind of strategy, a relevant strategy, because Proctor is recognized, is regarded as a wonderful school. I was part of Proctor, even from only a few months. The strategy for France in terms of being agile, as Ude said, but tell us about not only the strengths, but some kind of weaknesses. Tell us the truth.
What must we do in France for France to win? There are two things that I'd want to register.
And 1 point for Brexit also.
1 point for Brexit. 2 points I want to register. The first is we simply must encourage and champion the benefits of free and fair trade. We must not let the voice of protectionism prevail. That is a huge threat to the French economy and the global economy, and this is a conversation that's happening around the world. It's vitally important that we promote free and fair trade. That grows economies, it grows employment, and it generates wealth for everybody. Vital that we do that. The second, and I touched on it already, is that we have to encourage simple, transparent, fair regulation. I do worry when I see duplicated regulation between national governments and the EU government, and the degree to which we can cut that away and allow business to operate and invest and create jobs, the better we'll all be. But at the end of the day, and maybe this is the strategy, I don't think there's nothing that can't be fixed in France by what isn't already great about France. France has so much to offer. I talked about the talent, I talked about the investment climate. I mean, the geographic position in Europe is fantastic. The industrial know-how is fantastic. Investment is already attracted here. There's so much positive about France. And I think if we allow business to operate reasonably freely, to attract investment, then we can grow the economy, we can grow jobs, and we can continue to grow our brands, including Monsieur Prop. A final word on Brexit, you asked. We respect the decision of the British people. I have to say, I think it's perhaps an example of populism which can be a risk for business around the world. And we will have to wait and see what the implications of Brexit are. None of us know. But in the business community, I think the most important thing is that we get clarity quickly, and that those who are responsible for negotiating this exit bear in mind that free and fair trade benefits everybody. So the degree to which that can be maintained is very important.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure and a great honor to listening to all of you. Thank you, Gary. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Tony. Merci à vous. Vous pouvez les applaudir encore une fois, s'il vous plaît. Voilà, de l'enthousiasme. Just in front of the stage. Voilà, pour les photographes. Voilà, merci, merci infiniment. On va se retrouver avec Jean-Louis Caffier sur cette scène. Ce sera tout à l'heure aux alentours de 15h45. Et puis je vous retrouve ici à 18h05 avec Olivier Faure, avec Jean Lassalle et avec François Fillon, face à 3 entrepreneurs. Bon après-midi à vous et bonne université d'été du MEDEF. Thank you again. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Uday. And thank you, Gary.